Well, I've been busy or lazy, so let's get to it today. Welcome back, folks, for a new episode of Leaked. And today we're going to look at the Renault G1. This is going to be one of the new tanks introduced to the French tech line with the 9.7 patch. So there's some excitement for the AMX-30A and AMX-30B, but the low tiers are mostly filler, in my opinion. So these are duck tanks. They're not that pretty, but it's kind of fun to see them introduced. Now, the Renault G1, also known as the G1R, is basically a cousin to the BDR. So the BDR is actually the G1B, and both of these tanks, alongside with the G1F, the G1L, which stands for Lorraine, and the G1P, the Poniatowski, whatever the guy's name. So these tanks were actually prototypes to replace the D2 medium tank, but France was invaded by the Germans and lost initially, so all of these plans were scrapped, and basically until the liberation of France in 1944, there were no tank designs, so whatever. So this is actually a blueprint tank, and everything is paper, so to speak. But this tank was designed to be the T-34 or the Sherman of the French army. So it has a lot of new stuff like gun stabilization, gun handling, and a semi-automatic gun loading system. But nothing came out of it because the Germans. So another note before we start. The 9.7 test server should be up this week. So likely around Thursday or Friday. But what is disappointing about the test server patch notes is that we're not getting the M56 Scorpion to be tested. Now, I don't know if Wargaming is pulling the same tactic with the Panther 88, but if that happens, we might be able to see the Scorpion for release for 9.7. But if that's not true, then the Scorpion will be released later, so delayed to like 9.8 or so, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion, but such is the way of life. Alright, so today is the G1R. It is designed by Renault. So you can see that design. It looks like a UFO. It looks futuristic. Compared to the Sherman, yeah, it looks futuristic. The cupola has, what the hell are these things? Machine gun ports? Alright, so it has a very round turret, which kind of looks like the AMX-40's turret, the upgraded version, but the whole tank is curved superiorly. So those curves, man. Big, beautiful French tank. Yeah, it looks funky. Damn sexy. Damn sexy. So what is also interesting is that the G1R already have a model in the game. Now, this picture was taken of the G1R a year and a half ago. What that means is that there were a few tanks already implemented into the game with actual stats and armor models and stuff. So they were already designed, but Wargaming feels like the fan base for such tanks were low, so they were scrapped and never made it to the live server. So you can see the actual model of the G1R a year and a half ago. But we're getting it today, or soon. So we might be able to see a few of those old tanks, quote unquote, to be re-released for the actual live server. So tanks like the AMX M4 1945. No, that's the, we already have that, the 1949 version. So this tank right here, this is the AMX M4 1949. So it's an upgraded version to the 45. So it has a little bit bigger gun and a little bit bigger turret, a lot bigger turret. So it kind of looks like the French version of the M103. That's funky. That is funky. So we might be able to see a few resurgence of those old scrapped tanks from the French. So that's interesting. But back to talking about the G1R. So it is one of the few prototypes to develop the G1 series of the French tank designs. So you can see the G1R right here, the G1B, which is basically the BDR, the G1L, designed by Lorraine, and the G1P, designed by the Poniatowski. I'm going to fudge that one up. But these were designed from 1935 to 1940. But these are actually Tier 5, whereas the SARL 42 was designed in 1942, but this is actually Tier 4, so alright, but I recognize this thing because the stupid turret. So it looks like it has the same hull as the SARL 42, so that's interesting, but yeah, this turret, man, this turret. So you can see that these tanks plays a lot like a fatter, heavier version of a medium, so they're pretty much a heavy tank. The armor is not that great. It's 60 millimeters, but well sloped at the front, so you might be able to pull off some bounces like the Duck, the AMX-40. But the gun is alright. It has a derp gun. It has a low caliber, 75 millimeter. So yeah, it's alright. So it's a Duck at Tier 5, but here are the in-game models for the G1R. And here are the in-game models for the Renault G1. So you can see that with the stock turret, this tank looks like AMX-40. With the upgraded turret, this tank looks like a BDR. So yeah, the turret is not that great when fully upgraded because it's not well sloped like the stock turret. So you don't even need the upgraded turret, I think, to mount the 75mm. So you can just play this tank with the 75mm instead of the 105 derp gun. So yeah, this tank is well sloped, but it's only 60mm right here and down here. The middle plate right here is only 40mm, so you might be able to be penetrated with like the 76mm on the Sherman or the 75mm on the Panzer IV. But this tank does have space armor, the side skirts right here. So the side skirts are about 60mm, and that will bounce a few shots. But there's no armor underneath, so don't get directly penetrated with your space armor, so perpendicular to your vehicle. That's not good. But with the upgraded turret, this tank looks like a tea kettle, so it's a BDR. Ugh. Yeah, the upgraded turret is for the derp gun, so the 105mm derp gun. Ugh. Yeah, it doesn't have mantlet beneath it, so I'll show you the mantlet, but yeah, it's a BDR. That's a BDR. So here are the collision model. You can see that with the stock turret, it's actually quite bouncy because it's 60mm sloped at Tier 5. So any guns other than tank destroyers could not penetrate this thing, in my opinion. So other than shooting the cupola right here, but yeah, it's kind of bouncy. But with the upgraded turret, yeah, this tank has no armor on the turret now, so it's flat 60mm with a giant cupola, and there's no mantlet. The mantlet is pretty small, so you get penetrated if you get shot. So I do recommend you playing this tank with a 75mm instead of the 105mm. But we'll see. So this tank has no armor. It's slow. Yeah, you should use the 75mm. Alright. And here are the main stats for the Renault G1. Now this tank is a medium tank at Tier 5, so it doesn't have the health like a Tier 5 heavy tank. So 460 hit points. Engine power is 450, which is alright, but this tank weighs about 35 tons or so with the equipment. So power to weight ratio is roughly 12.7 or so. Heavy tank standard sucks. Top speed is 40 kilometers per hour, but you never reach it unless you get pushed by something like a Cromwell. So that sucks. Reverse is 12 kilometers per hour. Yeah. Hull traverse is 30 degrees per second, which is heavy tank. Turret traverse is 26 degrees per second, heavy tank. Terrain resistance is 1.05 for hard, 1.15 for medium, 2.3 for soft. So the closest tank that has the same terrain resistance is the IS-3. So it plays like an IS-3. It has good terrain resistance on hard and medium, but gets bogged down with soft terrains. View range is 350 standard. Radio range is above average, 740, but call for help, so that doesn't mean much. Hull armor is 60 millimeters all the way around, but I think it's just 60 millimeters on the space armor, or this little bar right here. What actual armor underneath is about 5 millimeters, so side armor is about 5. Turret armor is 60 millimeters all the way around on the top turret as well as the stock turret. So armor wise, the armor is not that great. It carries 3 different guns for now. 105mm that can only be mounted on the top turret. So it's like the Sherman's gun, it's a derp gun. Rate of fire is about the same as the Sherman. DPM is off the charts if you actually penetrate, but you can also use gold, so that's out of the question. Accuracy is crap. Aim time is crap. It has 8 degrees of gun depression, which is good, but the turret is huge. 15 degrees of gun elevation, which is alright. So you can also use the 75mm, which has about 75 millimeters of penetration with the stock gun. The upgraded 75mm has 100 millimeters of penetration. So damage is 110. Yeah, you would choose to use the 75mm, but the penetration is not that great, even on the stock or even on the upgraded version. So the stock version is just garbage, 75mm. So yeah, the gun choice is kind of terrible in my opinion, but do you really have to resort to using a derp gun with a slow moving hull and a slow traverse? So it's like playing a mixture between a Sherman and a BDR. That sucks. I mean, the BDR gets a 90mm gun, which penetrates quite well for a tier 5 heavy tank. This is actually a heavy tank, but it's considered as a medium with less health, a derpy gun, and the actual penetrating normal gun is not that great. So that kind of sucks. Alright. And let's compare the G1R with some tanks in the game. So let's see if the derp gun is worth it. So we have the Sherman as well as the Panzer IV. So we can see the rate of fire is actually faster or the same between the Panzer IV and the G1R. The Sherman is a little bit slower, so that's good. The accuracy, however, is the same, but the aim time is actually the fastest on the Panzer IV. The gun depression is the best on the Sherman, but the Panzer IV is 10 degrees of gun depression, so both of these tanks are better than the G1R. Same goes for the elevation. So the elevation on both tanks is actually a little bit better too. So that sucks. Alright, let's look at the mobility of the tank. Yeah, that's not going to compare that hard. So mobility wise, power to weight ratio is only 2-ish off from the Sherman. Way off from the Panzer IV, so it's even slower. Hull traverse is 7 degrees less, so alright. Actually 2 less from the Panzer IV. That's fine, but yeah, top speed is not the same as the Sherman, the same as the Panzer IV. Terrain resistance is actually worse than these medium tanks, so that sucks. View range is actually the same as the Panzer IV, not as good as the Sherman, so that sucks. Radio range is standard, but whatever. So yeah, turret traverse is not the same. Panzer IV has 46 degrees of turret traverse. Holy crap. The Sherman has about 39. This tank has 26. So the gun handling with the derp gun is not really that worth it, because the Panzer IV does the same thing with better handling skills. So might as well play the Panzer IV. It even has better frontal armor, 80 millimeters instead of 60. Might as well play the Panzer IV, right? Huh. Alright, let's look at the other guns. 75mm. It's obviously not as good as the 76mm on the Sherman. Not as good as the Panzer IV's 75mm. So we can see that switching with the 75mm, the penetration is 100 millimeters, but penetration on these tank is 128 and 110. So, alright. There's no reload time, so I cannot compare. Damn it, but yeah, it's a medium tank. It plays like a heavy tank. It, so let's compare to BDR. Why not? What the hell's a BDR? It doesn't play like any of the other mediums tanks. So with the BDR, does the BDR get a derp gun? No, it doesn't. It can use the same 75mm that's on the BDR. So this gun right here. So DPM with this gun is about 1,800. So roughly the same. Power to weight ratio is almost the same as this tank. Holy crap. Top speed is 10 kilometers faster. Reverse is 2 faster. Terrain resistance is a little bit better on hard and medium, but not as good on soft. View range is 30 meters better. Turret traverse is the same. It's actually worse than the BDR. Gun depression is the same. Gun elevation is actually worse than the BDR. Holy crap. That's interesting. Hull traverse is faster. Alright. I was looking at hull traverse. Hull traverse is actually faster by 60 degrees. So it's a little bit improvement over the BDR. But you cannot carry the game-changing 90mm that's on the BDR. So yeah, I cannot carry the 90mm. That sucks. So yeah, this tank, it's weird. It's like a hybrid of a medium tank and a heavy tank, but it carries a derp gun. I mean, if it carries a 90mm gun, it's actually worthwhile, but it doesn't. It carries a 105mm derp gun. So that's weird. Alright. So the final verdict on the G1R is that this tank is kind of crap, because it is supposed to be a medium tank, but it plays a lot like a heavy tank without armor. So that sucks. The turret traverse sucks. The hull traverse sucks. The power to weight ratio is below average. Top speed is 40 kilometers per hour, but you can never reach that unless you push it. That's what I think about it. So yeah, the terrain resistance is kind of under average. The view range is the same as the Panzer IV. The hull armor is not that great. The aim time is crap. So the 75mm is also crap if you want to play with the 75mm and the stock turret. So yeah, this tank wants to be a heavy tank but lacks the characteristics. So it kind of sucks, in my opinion. So if you want to play with a derp gun, play with the Panzer IV. It has better mobility. It's the same derp gun with better characteristics on the gun, like aim time or gun depression. So this tank is not that great. So if you want to get to the ARL 44, play with the BDR. The BDR at least has a 90mm gun, which is actually viable in like tier 7 games. The derp gun on this tank is not viable in a tier 7. And this tank is not that fast to flank or circle strafe a tier 7 heavy tank unless they have a damaged engine or something. So, or the tracks are blown off. But yeah, it's not that great. So the only interesting part about this tank is that this tank was quote unquote released for the test server a year and a half ago, but there were not that many players who wanted a French tank or interested in French tanks back then. So the fan base was not that high. So this tank was not introduced, as well as the AMX M4 1949 or some other tanks I'll show you in an upcoming video. But yeah, the fan base does increase over the time, or between back then and now. But yeah, we might see a resurgence of the tanks that were forgotten. So tanks like the 1949 M4 AMX. So I'll show you all the pictures and funky tanks like the F1, so the double turret. But that's to incorporate the dual turret technology. So it's a lot of stuff, but there were some tanks that doesn't need it. So like the I'll just show you the pictures right now. Fudge it. So where's the old pictures? So you can see here is the 1949 AMX M4. Here's a picture of the AMX 13 EBR turret. So it's a single shot turret. So that's kind of funky for the AMX 13. So here is the G1R previously. Here is the tank destroyer I totally forgot the name of, but that was just so stupid. Alright, here's another one. Here's the F1. I know this one. So there's a gigantic barn-sized turret. Here's a tank destroyer. I forgot most of these names, alright? I only remember the ones with the names I know. So yeah, I'll show you guys all these pictures and talk about them soon. But for now, trust me, it's a resurgence of an old tank that was scrapped years ago, or a year and a half ago. So yeah, the G1R. This tank is not bad. What am I saying? It's not bad as a heavy tank. It's kind of crap as a medium. So heavy tank wise, the side armor is kind of decent because it's space armor. But the turret is kind of big. So it's like playing the KV-220's gun, except you have no armor on the front hull. So yeah, this tank is kind of crap. This tank is crap. Yeah, go through the BDR. Don't go through this tank to get to the ARL 44. Ugh, it's just kind of bad. But thank you guys for watching this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment below on the G1R. Rate this video if you can. That always help me out a lot. Subscribe to my channel for more World of Tanks stuff. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.